I recognize the member for Beaches East York.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member from Kingston and the Islands for that amazing lesson in physics. You are a credible resource here in the chamber. And so here we go again, debating more policy that is going to help accelerate the climate crisis and cost Ontarians even more. Bill 165, Keeping Energy Prices Down Act 2024. And honestly, I just love the branding of these bills by the government. The titles are actually the complete opposite of what they do. It's like developers when they build sprawl and they name the new areas after the things they destroy, like Heron's Gate or Eagle Ridge. The truth is, this bill seeks to undermine the authority of an independent energy watchdog. Right? So let's just think about it. It seeks to undermine the authority of an independent energy watchdog. And as is routine for this government, they prioritize corporate interests over the well-being of Ontarians. The Ontario Energy Board, an independent arm's-length regulator mandated to protect the interests of energy customers, released a landmark decision telling Enbridge to stop subsidizing its plans to expand infrastructure for methane-heavy natural gas by charging buyers of new homes for connections. I agree with this decision. It should have been done and dusted after the board so bravely made this choice. So let me tell you what I think happened here. Their buddies, the government's buddies in the greenhouse gas industry, got so mad that the government had to do something to stop the legitimate decision by the OEB, so they had to legislate it because, well, they knew they could not win a legal appeal on this. The Ontario Energy Board came to this decision to help builders make informed choices when building new homes. The problem for this government is that if people have the option and information to make an informed choice, well, maybe many people won't choose gas. And they can't have that because they have too many people in the greenhouse gas industry counting on them to keep them rich. The government has justified Bill 165 based on the cost of the OEB decision. But
for Beaches East York, I recognize the member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
In speeches, members cannot impute motive, and that is what the member just did.
I will caution the member to be careful when she is referencing motive of the government.
Thank you. It's a little loud over here, but I'm going to try and speak over the rhetoric. So the government has justified Bill 165 based on the cost of the OEB decision, but the ruling would actually not have had a substantial impact on housing prices. In the long run, its influence on energy prices would be determined by the energy source a home used, a choice that will increasingly shift as renewables gain recognition as an affordable energy option. As gas becomes less competitive, homeowners with gas hookups may switch to other energy sources, leaving the gas infrastructure as a costly, stranded asset that would be a burden on homeowners who are still hooked up, a point that was emphasized by the OEB. The legislation also sets a dangerous precedent. This is the first time any government of Ontario has overruled a decision by the independent OEB. These independent watchdogs that we are lucky to have should be nonpartisan entities that look out for the needs of Ontarians. The board's mandate is to keep energy costs down, and that's what drove this decision. This government is not looking out for the needs of regular Ontarians who are trying to save money on their energy bills. You can listen to them rant and rave and waste all the time talking about federal issues, but when there is an actual opportunity to make life more affordable for the people of Ontario, they intervene and make sure that, as always, their friends and wealthy insiders are taken care of. Thank you.
I recognize the member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
That last comment was absolutely imputing motive.
I disagree. I will allow the member to continue if she chooses to, but you are no longer speaking. Okay, time for questions. Questions? I recognize the member for Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the member from Beaches East York. When the Liberals were in power, they politicized electricity planning. Liberals disregarded evidence. Liberals disregarded professional independent analysis. The Liberals directed the IESO to write blank checks for new gas plants and sign hundreds of overpriced private contracts with no OEB hearings to find out if these were a good deal for consumers. As a result, hydro bills skyrocketed. We all remember also the gas plant scandal where hard drives were damaged and deleted and a staffer went to jail, Speaker. So my question to the member is, what lessons did your party learn that you can share with the Conservatives so they can avoid making the same mistakes?
Back to the member for Beaches East York.
Thank you to the member from Parkdale High Park. And as you know, I just came 2 years ago, so I will start from June 2nd, 2022. And as you know, with the climate emergency, we all need to work together. And we need to stop being partisan, and that's what Ontarians are looking for. And I hear it time and time again, you know, whether everyone can just get behind good, strong, bold and brave climate action and work together. And, you know, I expect, because I know that that is part of the NDP, believe in climate change and want to do that and believe in the climate emergency, that you would work alongside with us, with the Greens, and hopefully with the Conservatives if they clue in that there's actually a climate emergency. Thank you.
I recognize the Solicitor General.
I'd like to ask my colleague from Beaches East York, how important is, in her opinion, is certainty? Is certainty of knowing that by having the infrastructure in place, and we heard from the member from Pembroke, Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, about, you know, when you look at rural areas, you know, people have a right to have a home. People have a right to be able to purchase a home, and we need certainty to do that. I think what I really appreciate in Bill 165 is by keeping the energy costs down with certainty, it allows us to take that step. How important is that in her opinion?
Back to the member for Beaches East York.
I'm actually thrilled that you asked that question. And what I'm hearing from Ontarians is they want certainty. Absolutely. But what they're getting from this government is the last thing, the furthest thing from that. Farmers. They don't know whether they're coming and going with you. You're selling their land, you're expropriating it, you're keeping it, you're all for the farmers. They don't know. There's no certainty. Developers. Well, let's see. We're going to not have you pay development charges, then we're going to have you pay them. Then we're going to allow this, and then we're not going to allow this. And planners, you're out of jobs in Ontario because we know best as this government. We're just going to take over and scrap all the planning policies that are out there. So there's no certainty for Ontarians with this government. So I would ask you to maybe walk the talk on your comments today.
For the questions, I recognize the member for St. Catharines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you to the member from Beaches East York for her presentation this afternoon. Speaker, given the PC's past critiques of your government's approach to electricity, which they compared to as a soap opera for its dramatic politicization, how do the Liberals now view the current government's similar strategy with Bill 165, which might lend to some lessons from previous missteps on electricity?
Back to the member for Beaches East York.
Thank you very much for that question. And what worries me about this government and their plan for electrification, it's mostly, it's by and large, they're putting all their eggs in the EV basket. And we know that electric vehicles are a part of one of the tools. They're one of the tools, but not the only tool. And here's the thing. Where is the supply chain? Have you secured the supply chain to extract these minerals in the Ring of Fire? Have you done that? No. Have you consulted or engaged with Indigenous communities? No. How are you doing this? And, well, we've had people in this chamber who are from the Ring of Fire who have been removed from the chamber for vowing that no way are you going to be able to get up there to extract the minerals. So you don't have the supply chain, and you're putting all your eggs in that basket and misleading Ontarians.
I recognize the member for Newmarket Aurora.
Thank you, Speaker. While the Ontario Energy Board makes hundreds of decisions a year, and to their credit, almost all of them without issue. But this particular decision did raise some concerns about the public engagement in the decision-making process. In fact, in the decision itself, one of the commissioners noted that this decision, which could have significant impacts on electricity demand, was reached without input from the province's independent electricity system operator. So to the member of Beaches East York, do you agree that it's concerning that members of the Commission didn't know the impacts of the decision before signing off on it? And do you agree that the changes we've proposed to increase public engagement is the right thing to do to ensure that the people of Ontario are heard on decisions that impact them?
Back to the member for Beaches East York.
Well, this is another very rich question, because now you're about certainty. That's the question I got earlier. But your actions don't match those words. And now you're about engagement. Oh my gosh, community engagement. Let's talk about when you engage. Did you engage the planners with Bill 23 and Bill 39? No. Did you engage the farmers with the Greenbelt debacle? No. And we know there's an RCMP $8.3 billion criminal investigation into that because you didn't do your homework and you're reversing these decisions. You haven't engaged teachers, nurses, education, frontline workers. No one. That is like you're allergic to engagement.
A reminder to address through the chair.
Your allergy to engagement is almost as strong and horrific as your allergy to the climate emergency.
For the questions, I recognize the member for Nickel Belt.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question is quite simple. The bill is called Keeping Energy Costs Down Act. Yet, we saw that this bill would allow the government to basically approve gas pipeline project that the Ontario Energy Board have reviewed and believe that it is not economically viable. It is too expensive and not in the public best interest to do so. So how can she reconcile the two? We have the Energy Board telling us that don't go ahead with those projects that are too expensive, and yet we have a bill that's called Keeping Energy Costs Down. Do you think there is a problem here?
Back to the member for response.
I think there are many problems here, and I talked about how these titles are so misleading. And they actually do the opposite of what they say they're going to do. And if you are aware of the climate emergency, you know that technology needs to change, and it will change. We're going to have extreme heat this summer, absolutely. In Ontario, we've had it in the past, but we won't. It will be worse this year, and it will continue to be worse. And we've done nothing for it. The FAO has warned us about the high cost to inaction, and we're doing nothing, and it's going to be more cost prohibitive. And Ontarians are doing their own thing. They're getting heat pumps. They're conserving energy. They're doing it themselves in spite of the lack of leadership.
We have time for one further question. I recognize the member for Nepean.
Tractor up. A lot of gall. Coming from an urban member from Toronto, who is part of the Ontario Liberal Party. When I showed up here in 2006 and we were debating the budget of the day, shortly after I was sworn in, the first thing we talked about were cuts to the agricultural community. How can you stand there and speak to this caucus about your record?
Back to the member for debate. Response.
Well, my record started June 2nd, 2022. And you know what? How can you stand here and say Ontario's open for business when you cut 748 renewable contracts, energy contracts, in 2018 when you arrived? Like, read the tea leaves and the rest of the world. You're open for business, but you